final piece in this chapter is to look at percent composition. And we start by defining what we call empirical formula. Empirical formula is the smallest whole number ratio of elements in a compound. So what we mean by that is substance such as glucose. Glucose has a molecular formula, its actual composition, of C6H12O6. But if you look at those numbers, clearly we can divide all of those by 6. And so its empirical formula would be CH2O. And the reason that empirical formulas can be useful to us is when you're trying to determine the actual chemical formula or molecular formula of a substance, we often start by being able to more easily determine this type of ratio. And we'll just do one example of that here. So a sample of pyrite contains 9.49 grams of iron and 10.9 grams of sulfur. And we're going to determine its empirical formula. So the way that we do this is we start by finding a mole ratio. So for sulfur here, we have 10.9 grams of sulfur. And we're going to determine how many moles that is. So 1 mole of sulfur is approximately, but we'll be more exact here, 32 grams of sulfur, or 0.340 moles of sulfur. We can do the same thing for iron. We have 9.49 grams of iron. For iron, 1 mole of iron is 55.85 grams of iron, or 0.170 moles of iron. Now, if we compare these two values, we can see there's basically 2 moles of sulfur for every 1 mole of iron. So what would be our empirical formula? 1 iron and 2 sulfur. Now, if we knew the total molecular formula or molecular mass of this compound, we could then use that to see if this is the actual formula or if we need to multiply through by some value. And what do I mean by that? So again, we found our empirical formula is FeS2. Now, if the molar mass was found to be 119.99 grams per mole, then we would know that was also the molecular formula. But what if the molar mass was instead 239.98 grams per mole? Well, we can see that's twice as much as we'd had there, and so we would need to double it. So Fe2S4, or it could be some other ratio, but whatever that ratio is would give us a number we need to multiply the empirical formula by in order to find the overall formula.